don't care where we sleep tonight. I don't care if it's in or outside. You know what to do. Make a move. You can throw away your phone. Make believe that we're all alone. I'm talking to you. Make a move. 'Cause I'm ready.
So let's start with this. Ainsley
Yeah.
was just showing me a video of you playing on a plane.
Oh God.
That's a different place for a gig. What was that like?
It was out. It was
It's so cool looking.
it was so cool, but it was scary because we didn't have any gear, you know. But we were asked, hey, will you do this thing? It would be a cool thing to do. And I said, well, yeah. I mean, it's a great idea. Although I would feel a little guilty keeping people captive in a tube and kind of forcing the music upon them. You know what I mean? Because really, there's nowhere else to escape. I mean, you go to the bathroom in a plane and that's about it. But there's only so many of those.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
And you're blocking the exit to the plane.
And you're
You're playing
blocking
in the
it.
front.
That's right. Yeah. So what we did was we took the, the little PA overhead kind of, the thing that like the CB that truckers use.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I sang into that, and I had my drummer, like kind of, I don't know what he was tapping on, but it sounded.
Baggage compartment.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
a little bit of that going on. Yeah, it was minimalist. Yeah, and my guitar player, of course, brought his guitar because those are portable. Drums not so portable.
No, not so much.
And piano definitely doesn't.
You gotta get one
work.
of those the little meaty ones or whatever.
One of those really.
The little Korgs or whatever. Doesn't matter.
Those look weird, right?
They do.
Yeah, they make a really weird instrument too called a melodeon, I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
called, and you blow into
Melodica.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, a melodica, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Melodica, and you go blow into it and stuff like that, but
What's the weirdest?
I don't think I have the wind capacity for that.
Really? As a singer, you figured? No.
Yeah,
it's all good.
I'd be focusing on my breathing, and even like the accordion even throws me
That's a
off
fun
because
one.
you got to feed it the air.
Yeah.
Throws off my rhythm.
I was gonna go something dirty, but I'm not gonna go with the feet. Never mind.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I know what you're gonna say.
I'm gonna segue that into what's the weirdest instrument on this record?
The weirdest instrument on
Make a
this
move.
record?
Like what was it? What was something just random that you threw on there?
I don't know if there are any weird instruments on this record.
What was the strangest thing that maybe you haven't put on a record before? I mean, there's a lot of horns on this record.
There's a mixture of stuff on this record. I think a lot of that has to do with it being so many different producers on the record. But there's things that some producers do that you can't really identify what is happening. You know what I mean? Because they'll throw in so many different ingredients, that you can't really pick one out and you're not sure, and you start taking wild guesses like, hey, is that a banjo and a synth and a drum, at the same time, and they pick and choose certain things to strike at the exact same time. So you can't necessarily pick out one instrument that's playing a part, which is kind of the cool thing about it, though.
So how do you recreate them live with the band? Just say, have fun, go. You guys figure it out.
It's tough because I was always very much a purist about performing live, and so I became really consumed with, well, if you can't perform it live, then don't bother putting it on the record, right? Which is a specific way to go about doing things, but it keeps you a little bit, I'd say limited as far as what your end result is on a record, and then I started to experiment more with more producers and more people and more players, and then you start realizing that you can't necessarily make your vision happen without using more and more and more tracks sometimes, and so ultimately what happens is there'll be some songs during the set where you go, okay, well, we'll run a track system on a few of these songs to give it some more of that size that, I can't bring out 30 people to play on stage with me. There's simply just not the space up there, a lot of people would probably have an issue with me taking out 20 buses to cart people around. The environmentalists would go crazy. Yeah. So anyway, you have to be, you have to keep a lot of other factors in mind. When you're cutting a record, and then of course when you're performing it live, you do the best. You try to get the closest to the record that you can, then at the same time when we play live, we introduce new musical ideas that aren't necessarily on the record.
That was gonna be my next question. I was listening to a Stripped record a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I wonder if he's pulling like different arrangements out for the old songs just to keep it interesting for yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the Stripped record was an idea that I had come up with my my first A&R guy, great guy named James Diener, and I said, you know, I had already released Chariot, and I said, but even Chariot at the time for me felt overproduced because I was a guy who played in bar rooms and played on the street and stuff like that. So everything sounded overproduced to me. You know, if they had more than 3 instruments, it sounded overproduced to me. You know?
So Gavin would not have made this record.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I said I'd like to go in and recut all the songs. You know, he said. Cool, let's do it, you know? And so we went in and we recut the whole record. It took one day. And I brought in some guys who I had played with before I ever cut a record, you know? And some guys who had been with me as well for a long time. So I already knew how to communicate with them, you know, my old way. Mm-hmm. And so that allowed me to take an approach to the songs that wouldn't be heard on the major label, the major release of the first major release of Chariot, because it simply, honestly, was too lo-fi to put out into the world at the time, honestly, you know. So right now, I think it would work even better, perhaps, than the original debut record, you know. But you know, what happens is tastes change, and you know, I think music is a form of the fashion world, you know. The different styles come in and out, and certain production styles come in and out. Lo-fi is in right now. Hi-fi was in a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we all keep finding our niches, you know. And I like to play with that, but everybody likes to play with that because it's all part of the guessing game of keeping things interesting, you know.
Yeah, and it works for crowd.
It works for the crowd. And so what we'll do tonight is we'll mix it up, and we won't do the strip stuff, but we will do some reinventions of old songs.
So what's changed the most? What song are you working on now that you're like, oh, I kind of wish I'd wrote it that way, or written there? Are there any?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, well, all of them. I think, you know, I think what happens is I guess over time you feel like you're getting better at certain things. You know, thank God it isn't sports, you know, because in sports you just get worse over time. But you know how it is. It's like, you know, the curve is, you know, once you're past 15, you start declining. You know, with music, a man's voice doesn't really start to mature until he's in his 40s. You know.
That's a good segue to Billy.
Which is fascinating. Yeah, Billy, right? Sure.
Cool, because his has gotten, it's like he's still hitting those notes that he hit 30 years ago, right?
It's amazing. The guy's 65 years old, and he hasn't lost a single thing. I actually think he's improved. He's so comfortable on stage. You know,
is that what you took away from the experience? Comfort?
Incredible, just incredible comfort. He when I was 15, I went to see him perform live, and I after the show, I got in the car, and I remember saying to my family, I said, I think I know what I want to do now, you know, and my father says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to do what that guy just did on stage, you know. So my father says, then that's what you'll do. So since then, it's been the journey, really inspired by watching him put on a show, because he was so comfortable on stage and comfortable with his audience, and his audience felt like they knew him. There was a real camaraderie between him and his music and his fan base, you know, something I had never seen before, and something that I don't know if I've seen since, really, to be honest with you. He's so connected to them, you know. There's a real common man likability in his lyric, and from the perspective of his audience to him, they feel there's a real camaraderie there, you know.
Yeah, well, you've told me something on those lyrics. I wrote it down too. It's like he's talking to you or telling a story at the dinner table.
It really is.
Is what you had told me like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it really is.
Have you taken that into your songwriting? Are you trying to do that?
You know, I always try to compare myself to people much better than me. So it's something that I constantly apply. yet always feel like I'm just barely accomplishing. You know what I mean? And so it's important. Look, the reality is it's good to have goals.
I meant more of like the telling.
It's good to have goals like
telling
that.
a story, though. I didn't mean comparing it.
Yeah.
Because I heard you say you wanted to, you had a bit more of a persona when you're co-writing. Like you're able to take on like a Dylan, right? Like take on a different personality.
100%. I think that's one of the.
So you're the next Billy Joel, is what we're saying.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So. First of all, I think that's a major part of songwriting. I think that a lot of writers use that technique, taking on a character, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and saying, I'm going to be that person for the sake of this song, right? Tell their story first person if I can. Or think of an artist and think to yourself, what would such and such an artist perform? What would their song be? What would their voice want to sing? What melody would suit their voice? And you come up with something like that. And write a song from that, standpoint or that approach, and I think that taking approaches like that allows your collection of songs to be a lot more interesting and more diverse. And on top of that, I think one thing that obviously adds to that is co-writing. I was really uptight about co-writing prior to my last record, prior to Sweeter, and Sweeter was my first attempt at actually writing with other people. And so a few of the songs off that record were co-writes, and the rest were written alone like I was used to doing on all my other records. But when I had a positive experience co-writing, and I thought, wow, I never would have written Not Over You without someone else in the room, without Ryan Tedder in the room, or Run Every Time without Andrew Frampton in the room. And I thought to myself, wow, well, this just never would have come out of me without someone else, throwing in their opinions and their ideas too, And so when I went to the studio for Make a Move, I let everyone know that I wanted to continue the co-writing thing because it made writing more interesting, and it made everything happen so much faster. It just expedited the process and alleviated all of that strain of you have to get it all done by yourself, and you have a deadline, and you have to stay focused. When you're in a room with someone else, you keep each other on target,
What songs flowed the quickest then?
For this record?
Yeah.
God, it's hard to say.
Or what was the hardest one? Maybe we'll go to the flip side.
Make a Move took a couple of days of going back and forth across a coffee table with a couple of guys, and I can't tell you how many pitchers of coffee we had trying to come up with an idea. I mean, just endless amounts of caffeine going, no, that's not good enough, no. That's not good enough either, and that goes on and on and on. Oh, what's that?
When did the oohs come in? I'm not going to try and sing for it, your own song for you, but... the hook.
I think,
when did the hook?
Yeah, isn't that funny too, the way that works? Because, you see it a lot in music where different sounds represent different eras. Even vocalizations that aren't words. Okay? In the 60s, there was a lot of sha-la-la-la-las. Early, mid-60s, right?
Yeah, Van.
Yes. Sha-la-la-la-las. That's early, mid-60s style, completely. Right?
Yeah.
And then the ooh thing was, I think, more of a 70s thing, right? A 70s R&B thing. Yeah?
Oh, that's interesting.
And then as top 40 pop music became more urban, those sounds came back into the rock songs and the other pop songs and things like that. So there's so much R&B, classic R&B in modern rock and roll and in modern pop music. So as we move forward, as we continue to progress musically, we have more and more influences from the past, obviously, and becomes, we start to recycle things that work, things that stood out to us from older records that we like to listen to and things like that, and we find ways to fit them into the stuff that we're writing now, And so you get a
That's not going to get annoying.
Those and that is really almost like OJ style, you know? And there's something very, very R&B, like 4 or 5 guys getting together, 4 top style thing there, but 70s to me, you know? But it's a different production style, so it adds a whole nother flair to what that would be, you know?
I want to keep going, but the show's starting. I got to let you go, man.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry, man.
Let's do 5 questions.
I talk a lot.
It's
Go
all
ahead.
good. No,
sorry
we're doing an interview. You should be
Okay,
talking
good.
a lot.
Good.
5 quick questions, 1 word answers.
Yeah.
Road or studio?
I like the road.
Lennon or McCartney?
Oh, it's tough.
You've done these before.
I think that McCartney is highly underrated for how groundbreaking his concepts were. I'm going to give you the proof in the pudding. The proof is Helter Skelter. That was McCartney. Although I'm a huge Lennon fan. I love.
1 word answers, Gavin.
Sorry. A Day in the Life is my favorite Beatles song. Yet Helter Skelter was, in my opinion, the groundbreaking rock and roll song, and that was McCartney.
I don't disagree.
You what?
I don't disagree. And when you hear a song, what usually hits you first? Lyrics, melody, or rhythm?
I'll tell you what stands out to me the most when it's bad. Lyric.
Cool.
I think that lyric,
Word, you gotta go.
lyric is the most important, and the reason is that's what people identify with ultimately. They identify with the subject matter. Yeah, they could feel the rhythm, they could like a melody, but they identify with the lyric. You know what I mean?
I do, and I want to continue talking.
Sorry,
about that,
go
but
ahead.
I can't. If someone's never heard Gavin DeGraw before, what song do they start with?
Oh, come on! I don't know.
You said Soldier last time.
Soldier, I'm really proud of.
I think that's what you said last
Soldier, I'm very proud of. That's a special.
time. I'm going to feed you the answer, so they're 1 word.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Soldier to me is a song that it never had its day in the sun.
We'll keep playing it live.
It never had a fair shake.
Let it live on.
Never had a fair shake.
In 1 word, Gavin DeGraw.
Yes, 1 word.
Gavin DeGraw.
Oh. Excitable.
That's a good one. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much,
Good
man.
talking to
Nice
you.
to see you again,
Yeah,
man.
you
Thank
too.
you very, very
Cool.
much. Appreciate it. I like your place. This is very nice.
Yeah.